We're back for another episode of the Best Damn League Show period / full stop. And obviously on this one, we have a different guest. We have Jinjo, who is someone who was previously a Challenger ADC, and he was working as a coach with MKOI's academy team. We'll get to maybe some of that later. Now, if you know the new format of the show, we're trying to lead with the spice and then draw people into the rest of the episode instead of the slow build up. Because what I've learned is it's not Parkinson, mate. You can't just start with, how are you doing? And then you build into it. You have to just go straight into it. So I'll tell you what, in a rare example of ego, which I would never display on a talk show like this, I'm just a mere role player setting others up. I will actually choose to do my spicy point first, and that will be absolutely firmly put in the ugly category. And if you've ever seen my shows, even though I will repeat certain themes and refrains, like all great thinkers, I definitely do segment my takes based on shows. So if you watch Summoning Insight, don't worry, I will go insanely in depth, probably like a 45-minute segment about this topic, but I'll tell you how I'm going to frame my ugly point. My ugly point is this. No, it's not bad. It's ugly. It is Los Ratones fans and Nemesis essentially demanding that franchising be scrapped and they just be allowed direct entry into the LEC itself. Now, why this is in the ugly category and not bad is I understand selfishly and ignorantly why both of those parties, Nemesis the player, because let's be real, the others probably think it, but he's the vocal one, and also, it's funny he made those comments about Reckless, let's say a year or so ago, with, let's say, Reckless's condition, because Nemesis, mate, don't know that you'd beat the allegations on that one, as shown by your lack of social awareness over and over and over again. You haven't even got that blip or charisma to carry you. So anyway, it's all good. Luckily, you're good on Rise. One of the things that I think is funny is that what makes this not just annoying is it's just ignorant is the problem. It's pure ignorance. Like, this isn't a topic, by the way, that was never discussed. This topic's been discussed endlessly on the internet. You can even find hours and hours of material of people who are owners, investors in esports. There's business. The joke is I have an industry talk show. We talked about all these topics to death. I actually was the person literally a year or two before they actually implemented franchising who said this is a bad idea. I won't do the whole thing, but I essentially ran down your entire bingo list. Without promotions, you will literally get a worse quality product, because then you will have protectionism for bad teams. Then you will get GMs and coaches who don't recruit the right players, and even though that player would have beat you in promotions, they won't get promoted. Bad teams won't get relegated. The same people stay in. Also, they'll never enforce the relegation rules where they'll kick you after a certain amount. That's just put in there so that they could, if they don't like you, kick you for any reason. It's not actually there so that if you come 10th 4 times in a row, which by the way is an absurdly unlikely scenario that's extremely unlikely for any team anywhere. So anyway, to bring it all back, I get why they want it. They want it because, one, Nemesis doesn't want to play in the RLs. He wants to play at LEC again. 2, they want to bring all this viewership and all their fans, and they want Cage Stream to pop off, and it brings life and rivalries back to the LEC. Problem with all of that is, absolutely all of that, if I do a quick maths, lads, it actually adds up to, when I add in the real point to the equation, which is the financial burden already exerted by the LEC teams, and what the LEC is, not a League of Legends competition, a franchised European league. At the end of it all, no matter how much viewership you put in, no matter how much hype you put in, no matter how awesome it would be for Nemesis, no matter how much all the Los Ratones players want to be in LEC, and how much more interest, at the end, when I apply the multiplier of how much it would cost all the teams, and even potentially the legal implications for Riot, it all adds up to diddly fucking squat. Because again, this is not a league that is about actually views. I know people won't understand that. The whole point of franchising, quite literally, I'll explain it in 30 seconds, was this. In the investment world, this doesn't exist in esports anymore. All this money goes into crypto and AI now. People used to take their portfolio and they would take like 50% of it and put it in really safe investments that just go up and down 1 or 2%, and then they're the hold of your money, and they're investments you believe in, they'll grow year on year. Then you take, say, 30-40%, you throw that into like semi-risky medium investments, things maybe you know something about the market someone else doesn't, you just think that actually this is an underrated asset that'll change in some way. That stuff where in general you're what crazy to grow, you want it again, maybe that's 10% up, 10% down, you will say. And then with your last 10%, you go, fuck it, let it ride. And the whole point of the 10%, by the way, is not to go as a business and grow slowly. It's not to go up a little bit and down a bit and grow. It's literally to gamble it. It's to go, you know what, the 10% at the end, throw it on the roulette table. I want 35 to 1. Did I win? Whoa, 35. And if I lose, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? It was the 10%. That's not even my investment. One, that doesn't exist in esports, and it already has. That's what the LEC is. That's what Overwatch League was. That's what the LCS was. That's what the Call of Duty League was. That isn't what VCT and Valorant is, because in VCT Valorant, you didn't buy a franchise slot. You were given a partnership. If you were a team, think about how familiar this sounds, guys. It sounds like you guys could get into Valorant, by the way. You were given a VCT partnership spot if you were a team that had the right business model, branding, and players that you would attract attention. Oh, we've nailed it. You need to switch to Valorant there, mate. Valorant's the game for you, because in League, essentially, the quick version is this. The idea that, like, cause the viewership is good. By the way, if viewership got you sponsors and sponsors got you money, then KCorp would already have all the money in the world. He'd either not need to join LEC or he'd buy a slot, wouldn't he? But the reason why he doesn't is because just get sponsors and just turn it into money is like saying, just get a bunch of lead and then just get an alchemist and get him to turn it into gold. It's like, well, fuck me, yeah. I'd love to do that too. Do you know any Rumpelstiltskins out there? I don't know any, mate. I've never met any, so weird. So that's not an easy scenario. And then lastly, this is the more important detail. There are literal financial implications for both Riot and the teams. Here's how they go. Riot Games, especially through Tencent, is a literally publicly traded company that has stocks. Now, what you won't know as a little kid is, you've never seen this in a TV or movie show, you have a thing legally called a fiduciary responsibility. That means if you are someone in a publicly traded company on like a board, it can literally be illegal for you to make actions which cause the stock price to go down if you did so knowingly. So you can't just do things like, you know what, fuck it, let them eat cake, give them millions of dollars, give them free slots. You're supposed to always make that stock price go up, and if you don't, you can either get voted off the board or you can literally get sued. So then, last thing is the LEC teams. You know the whole thing of like, well, if they're that bad, they deserve to be relegated. What does deserve mean? They've paid 10 million to 30 million euros. Like, you know what, crazy take here. I don't think if you pay 30 million euros, you should be kicked out of the league the next year if your player plays shit in mid lane. I don't think that's actually an appropriate cost, risk, effective balance on that one. So I've purposely made it that the fans demanding it is the ugly point. As you can see, it's actually a very complicated topic, which anyone who thinks they know instantly, I know you already don't know. It's like quantum physics. The more you actually know, the more complicated this shit is to explain. But essentially, no, it's not as simple as viewership's great, just make promotion relegation. Who needs the franchise spots anyway? I'll even throw the last one in just to check the whole thing so you think, give us a break, Thorin. Oh, why doesn't Riot just give them the spot? Again, it's a league partly owned by the teams. They're supposed to have a say in who joins. And more importantly, if they just give them a spot, then why did Kometo pay 30 million for not even the entire slot? If you go and look up the details on that, he didn't get the entire slot. All those slots that were sold in LEC was so expensive, people took the majority percentage, and most of the other teams, Astralis, etc., Schalke, etc., they retained a tiny amount of the percentage. And essentially, I would even say this, if you really want to get edgy, Los Ratones fans, I'll give you one piece of ammunition. No, don't give Los Ratones a slot. Don't say they can come in for free. If you want that to happen, there's no universe where Riot would ever give all the franchising money back. That is the stupidest idea. That's like saying, if I beat you at poker and I have all your money, you can't get in the game anymore, so I should just give it all back. Why the fuck would I ever do that? That is a mental idea. But if I wanted you in the game for some reason, maybe I go, all right, flick a nice big chip over and you get one chip to come back in the game. So here's what you could do if you're Riot. Don't let them in for free. If you want them in the league, you pay every single other LEC team a fee and for them to temporarily play, and you have to keep re-upping the fee every year, every 2 years, and that way you can have a negotiation, you can do something for views. So, okay, boys, you can go anywhere you want with this, you can do nothing with it, it's up to you. What do you think, Jinjo? I realise this is above everyone's pay grade, so see what you think, mate. What do you think of it? Pick any part of that you want.
Well, it's actually quite interesting when I was having a look and considering some topics for the show. I actually also thought about the franchising. Now, I obviously have been a player and now coaching, so my understanding of how the actual market works is quite limited. What I would say, though, it's very nice to be in a situation where you can be an academy team and there's a possibility of promotion or stealing a spot.
Sure.
When I was playing on Mad Lions, we did some internal scrims. So we were playing against the LEC team as the academy team. And those experiences for me were phenomenal. I realized I could compete. I realized that if you have the right hunger, it's possible to beat these teams. Of course, the main team is probably taking the piss a little bit as well. Why do we have to play the academy team? But yeah, from that side, I would say it's a good idea, but the logistics seem like a nightmare. It seems really, really hard to get this sorted. So yeah, that's about all I have to say.
It's all good. Peter, where do you want to jump in on this one, mate? Join me in the minefield.
Okay, so
I'll
I'll start by saying Thorin is far too modest here to say that specifically the show he's talking about, right? Which is obviously the Four Horsemen show, which Thorin does with Monty and Richard Lewis and a guest. And for all people who are interested in this topic, recommended extra viewing. In particular, the one with Papa Smithy, which was 2 months ago.
Maybe a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, last month ago, and then they did one with Arnold as well recently. And if you want to learn about esports economics, those are the things.
And by the way, as I told Arnold on that episode, there's a moment in the show where, because fuck it, at that point I've sent it anyway, I just turned to him and go, those Korean journalists cut from kind of a different cloth, aren't they? So you know what? All I'm going to say is I don't think he's experienced that before. Not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
I mean, sure. All I'll say is that a lot of these decisions which don't make that much sense to the average fan. There are like financial realities behind it, and the average immature fan who's 15 years old or something, or 10 years old, is just like, oh, just do the right thing, just like do the thing which benefits me, without thinking what the long-term implications of this kind of thing is, and obviously the fact that Riot have backed themselves into a corner. And basically there's no way out of it. And even the 10th place thing, it was CLG in LCS who finished like 9th or 10th, like 4 splits in a row, and nothing happened to them, right? Like they got like a stud talking to, and that was it.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Done talking to.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not gonna happen, right? And obviously, best of ones and things like this have all kinds of variants, right? So it's almost impossible, even if you are the worst team in the league, for this to happen, because Europe is not at the point now where every single top team will beat every team below you for reasons we're going to talk about in this show. So first thing I'll say is that. Second thing I'm going to say is there are things that you can do to increase exposure for to get.
Have you come up with some solutions? Come on, hit me with them. Hit me with the creative solutions.
Yeah, I mean, you can do kind of situations like we talked about the NLB system, which is a Korean system that they used to have back in the day, which is where you'd have like a 2-tier competition, and people who played in the lower, you'd have the bottom tier. So OGN used to be like a knockout tournament with four groups of 4, and then if you came top 2 in your group, you go to playoffs. If you came third, you went into the lower tier competition with like multiple buys. If you came fourth, I think you got like 2 buys if you came fourth, and 3 buys if you came third. And then there was a lower competition which would seed into this tournament, and the teams that came third and fourth in champions would then automatically make playoffs. And then the teams from the groups below would basically have the chance to play against them, right, at different points.
Essentially, think of it like this. Imagine if you took the top part of EU Masters and that just ended, you got the championship for EU Masters, but then it also took those teams and put them into a tournament that featured the bottom half of the LEC. And it's like, essentially, you wouldn't put Los Ratones into LEC. You wouldn't keep them totally in the RLs. They could sort of meet halfway between. So you just wouldn't probably play like KC, but you could potentially play, MKOI or fucking, depends who's below the top 4. Vitality or GX, something like that, right?
Yeah, and it qualify you for next Blitz champions. If you did really well in NLB, and it was like a better system than the West, because basically relegations didn't completely fuck you. Like you'd have to mess up champions, and then you'd have multiple seedings, you'd have to like really, really mess up in NLB if you were like a top team to get knocked out completely. You'd have to have multiple splits where disasters would happen in a row for disasters to happen, right? This was obviously a great system. It's not going to happen in the West, but that's one thing you could do to mitigate.
No, by the way, one thing you're suggesting here that's quite a cogent point, Peter, is like, as much as I agree actually with the owners, if I've paid like 30 million euros and I have fuck all chance of ever seeing that back again, don't even talk to me about making a league where other people get in. Like, I'm not even willing to have that conversation. But if I was the person who's like an American owner who's like, I can't get relegated from the league, in this scenario, what Peter's saying is you're getting so many gameplay chances to just keep your spot that like it's insanely unlikely you could lose it. It's actually like even less likely than they've placed 4th 10 times in a row. Like it's almost like at that point, if you did it, you'd have to have so mismanaged your team. I won't say you deserve it, but like that, someone has to have some punishment eventually,
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good
suggestion.
So I'd say for that, that was one system. The second system you could do is you can have like a 2-tier league, which is obviously what they did in LPL and LCK.
Yeah.
The LCK system I don't think worked quite well enough because there weren't enough teams in the league. But what you essentially do is you have more franchise teams, right? So you have like let's say 16 teams, 8 Division 1, 8 Division 2 teams, and that forces you to be competitive without losing everything, right? So let's say you were a top 8 team, you get to play in Division 1 for the entirety of the year, you come bottom 2 in that, you play a relegation tournament, you get relegated, but you don't, like the old relegation system, basically if you lost, you were completely doomed. You were completely out. There was no hope for you. A lot of these orgs just got relegated and just ceased to exist. You would then still be one of the few orgs that could enter the promotion tournament to get promoted again in the future. Causes similar problems. I mean, it's still a closed system. The difference is that fans don't have to watch they don't have to watch all these dross teams, like the 7th and 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th place teams have to actually invest money because they don't want to get put into tier 2 with the system that doesn't work. Problem is, when they did it in Korea, it was only a 5-team system, and there were 3 really, really fucking good teams in Korea last year, and the 4 and 5 team look really, really rough. Maybe worse than they deserve to look. But you can essentially increase franchising by having multiple closed leagues together, right? So you have some kind of relegation, but it's relegation within a franchise. Right, and those are the 2 solutions that have been tried in esports to some degrees of success. I don't know I don't know the financial realities of this. I know that there's a lot of bad blood between certain team owners and Riot LEC, right?
Yeah.
In particular, I don't have to talk too much about it from things I've heard behind the scenes because it's not just Kometo, but Kometo's basically gone public and said it. So I can quote Kometo, but I'm saying he's not the only one, right? But
this way, let's just say I would speculate the owners themselves across the board have gone mental about this whole Los Ratones thing. Even though they want the viewership, they certainly don't want this, like, you skip the queue thing. It's just that Kometo was the only one that not only I think leaked it, but then also just went on public because he's got a massive stream. So he's just become the face of it all. But as far as I can tell, it's a very shared sentiment among owners.
Yeah. Again, I really don't want to go any further than that because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. Yeah. But basically, like Kometo felt he was in a solid enough position to basically say whatever the fuck he wants, which is like quite interesting, that he felt out of everyone that he was the one who felt that he could put a face to it. But yeah, I mean, you just look at the way that KC were treated, and it makes sense that they don't want another org to be given a free pass, right? Of course, reverse these situations, put it 5 years ago, and maybe KC are like, I'll take this free slot of the KC. But the problem is Riot have put themselves in a corner here.
Yep.
There's no easy way out of it. And it was a model designed for a system where there was lots of venture capitalist money coming into the ecosystem. And this was a way, essentially, for teams to store value and people within the scene to make a lot of money in the very short term. And a lot of those guys who made their money have just fucked off, basically. They cashed out. They go live in I don't even know what Hotshot is doing these days. Like Hotshot, Reginald, similar people in Europe. They just took the venture capitalist money and they were like, "Thank you very much. I'm going to take my 10 mil and I'm just going to walk off and good luck dealing with your franchise things in the system." Or a lot of this venture capitalist money has just been spent on inflated wages and things like this. So that's why we don't see any of the benefits of a lot of the benefits of it. But basically, a lot of people became very, very rich off this. And what are you going to do? You can't claw the money back of these guys because that they sold this idea that we are going to be responsible. We're going to use our franchise system to promote domestic talent. We're going to use our franchise system to promote tier 1, tier 2 and things like this. And then those guys who made those promises just immediately sold out and just left. And that's the tragedy of it, right? Like, who are you going to hold accountable? Like, they're not in the ecosystem, they're not in the industry anymore, right? So yeah, we're left now holding the bag, and that's kind of what you have to do. But yeah, nobody's going to be bought out for 30 million, that's for sure. Not with the current economics of it. So we're just stuck like it is. And they've tried this midway system. The thing is that now I feel they've maybe let the cat out of the bag a little bit, because now that, you know, if Los Ratones went 1-10 or something, it would have been fine, right? But now they're 4-4, almost in a very good position to make playoffs. And let's say they do make playoffs, you know, then this discussion, when it happens again next year or next split, is going to become a very, very complicated discussion. And before, you could always hold that illusion that, you know, LEC was the prime area of getting all this talent, but now fans can see very clearly that it's not the case, right? And that now will make fan sentiment more awkward going into the future. So I just leave it at that. It's a complicated topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, by the way, I even think if you're Riot, you're also just doing the like 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing. So you're like, look, we're going to let them in, but it's not LEC, it's LEC versus. It's like sort of an exhibition tournament, even though it just replaces the winter split and qualifies first stand. But okay, let's play word games here. And then they go, and besides, who even knows how they'll do? Like Peter says, maybe they go 0-11, and we just close the chapter on this. Oh, what's that? Shit, not only do they break all the viewership records, but they've actually now won 4 games. Well, you know what, guys? We're going to have a conversation about it. It's like my joke is, it's like the Fearless thing. They were like, don't worry, though. We're not just going to implement it all crazy and put it on all the tournaments. What's that? Everyone loves it. The whole world is Fearless. Now League of Legends is Fearless. Like, that's how things go, mate. So, as Peter said, it might not even be next year. It might be next split, mate. That's even why you see certain dogs barking about, like, they must do something about this now. Like, interesting comments. Yeah, sure. Anything foul to say, Jinjo?
Well... My ugly topic is actually Los Ratones.
Let's do it.
Some of the games we've been watching, obviously, it's been super hyped to watch. Their match against G2 was awesome. We need to talk about G2's drafting strategy later as well. But LR have been polarizing to watch. I think their most recent loss was... I was cringing a little bit. To watch that game actually felt physically painful. So the fans are on the edge of their seats. But it's quite interesting because let's say you got 2 rookies, right? You have Baus and you have Velia. Now, they have their identity and skill set and what makes them a good content creator and a player in solo queue. The problem is, well, how do you actually develop rookies? So you can go down a few different paths. If you think that, let's say Velia, for example, is going to be a franchise player for Los Ratones in whatever league, could be ERL or LEC. Well, you'd start working on his identity. So if this guy is someone who likes to invade, plays super fast, you would turn that 7, or his high level of skill, and you try to turn it into a 9. And maybe you could ignore some of his, let's say, weaker understandings of the game. The problem is that's not the case. Velia is playing the game like a player that wants to be a franchise player, but the franchise player is Nemesis and Crowny, or some combination of the two.
Yeah, of course.
So what he needs to do is he actually needs to learn how to play as a, in quotes, dog jungler. He needs to be there at the right time, not do things that are phenomenally stupid, and be there for his teammates. And paradoxically, while it might be better for him to play this high tempo invading style, you know, let's get some clips doing some crazy things, it will actually probably suit him better in the long run if they just win a couple more games. So he's in an interesting decision where I guess he needs to pick, and maybe it's not intentional, but yeah, content versus professional results, for me, if you're a content creator, it really incentivizes volatility. Baus died in between turrets proxying again. Lol. 50,000, 5 million views on Twitter, TikTok, whatever. I'm not sure. I'm not saying people have bad intentions, but yeah, their results and their volatility have been not the best. I think when it comes to drafting as well, I think their bot lane has had situations where they want to be in comfortable matchups, and Baus is kind of getting fucked over for it. One of their games, I think 280 carries was Yunara and Aphelios. I think it was versus G2. The best support pairing in that case for both of them is Lulu. But on the red side 4 pick, we end up picking Kled blind, which for anyone that doesn't play much competitive league, it's completely dog shit. So Reckless gets his support counter pick on when there's a clear best option, which is Lulu. Enemy team, obviously G2 takes Lulu and he picks his Nami. They end up winning the game. But guys, why are we making Baus blind pick fucking Kled when we have red side 5th pick? That's all.
Okay. Okay, Peter, what do you think?
No, sure. It's interesting that that BB still win Rumble. There's definitely things that can fuck Kled harder than Rumble. It's obviously not a fantastic matchup for Kled, but like there are things that they could G2 didn't get that much from their counterpick. But what I would say is, so let's start with the Na'Vi game. So the Na'Vi game, I think, is, you know, I really respect Navi's coaching staff a lot. I like The Rock, I like Lopon. You know, I know these two guys pretty well. I don't know Go21 that well, but you know, I can see his results and what players talk about and say that he did. So I can. I mean, what they've done is they've basically gone and looked at Game of Legends or whatever software they use and seen, oh, look at this. Veya has played how many games? 4, 6, 8. He's played 8 games so far this season. He has a 0% win rate on any champion except one Pantheon game where he was like literally doing nothing in the game. He has 0% win rate on all of this, but he has a 75% win rate on Mundo. Let's ban the Mundo instead of giving him Mundo, you know? And then he doesn't play Mundo, and then he basically can't play the game because he doesn't know how to play as a dog jungler at an LEC level. Maybe at an ERL level he can, but essentially, you know, they were lucky in that regard in that they have 2 coaches that have followed ERL very, very closely. The Rock because, you know, he worked on KCB last year, and Lopon because basically he just watches all the ERLs, and they know Los Ratones and they respect Los Ratones because they've actually been involved in scrims involving that team, so they don't underestimate them, right? They don't try to do anything fancy. They're just like, okay, we understand who these players are, and we're just going to ban appropriately. We're not going to disrespect them like G2 did. We're just going to go and just target ban them, and it was effective, and the game was pretty ugly. Right? What I would say about the content thing, so the franchise player thing. So I actually think the franchise player for this team, I think it's kind of like Nemesis and Baus. I think Baus is kind of the franchise, is in a position where he has to be the franchise player, because no matter what he does, what you do, he is going to play the same way, right? Like, I think that, in a sense, maybe he's not like the best player on the team, but he is the player who is the least flexible, and often that's the one thing you get as a franchise player, right? You're not always the best player on the team, but your weaknesses are the ones that are covered for the most, I would say.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
I would agree with that completely. But if you look at their drafts, like, it doesn't seem like he's being put in a position where he's allowed to be that player. And a franchise player also implies that he wants to come back next split.
That's fair.
I'm speculating. I'm not even sure if he's enjoying it right now. He made a couple comments about it being intense and.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he says he doesn't want to do this anymore. But what I would say is that watching solo queue, he has like he was. So I got linked this video. I was doing a bit of background research on this, and he basically asked him why he didn't pick certain picks in LEC, and he was just like, you know, I can only play certain number of champions. I'm not going to say the number, but if you look at my solo queue, you know, you can see like those champions, and basically, you know, if I'm not mistaken, the champions he plays are basically Sion, Kled, Gragas, and Sion, Kled, Gragas,
Poppy looks good.
Poppy. And those are the 4 that he's played like a ton of solo queue, and then he's played some other number of champions, right? But like, there's a big 4. He doesn't play all the meta stuff. He just has certain picks that he picks, and they pick Kled because I think the way he described it on his stream is, I played so much Kled anyway that, like, you know, I'm not gonna pick up a new champion now. So since I've invested all of this time, let's just pick Kled anyway. I'm paraphrasing. Obviously, Bass doesn't talk like that, right? But like, that's essentially what he would say. So I mean, there are certain weaknesses that this team has showed, but it's interesting that none of the LEC teams have respected these guys enough to actually like target ban them in an appropriate way, except ironically KCB and Na'Vi, who are the 2 that have like the coaching staff that follow the ERLs. You know, it's just a pure disrespect. And I mean, you look at the G2 draft. Okay, Los Ratones have won 4 games. 3 of those games were not won because they were necessarily playing better than the other team. They won because Nemesis and Baus, like, kind of mega Smurf team fights, right? Like, there was a Gragas game where Baus, like, literally, I'm not sure that there's 10 LEC teams. I'm not sure that 9 LEC top laners could have played Gragas as well as he played. Like, Wonder could have played Gragas at that level. But I think, even BB, like the way he was team fighting on Gragas was fucking insane in that game. He solo died in lane, it was terrible, but his team fighting was absolutely insane. Nemesis has had carry games as well, but essentially they've won games because Bounce has hit a Poppy ult or Gragas ult, or Nemesis is just like smurfed out of his mind, right? The G2 game, they actually did play better than G2, right? They were better, they were out-rotating them, they were smurfing on them. But you look at this G2 draft, into Anivia, their carries are Ryze and Aphelios, into Anivia, and they play a range support. They don't even have like Nautilus or something into Anivia. Anivia is god tier in that game. Like it's really, really hard to play these like mid-range mage in Ryze's sense. I don't know what's official terminology for Aphelios. It's not like a long-range AD carry. It's not a mid-range, but one of the shorter range, less mobile AD carries, right? There's the technical term has escaped me, right? But those kind of things are almost impossible to play into Nivea. You don't have engage, right? So you're forced to try to split up the map, and they didn't split the map appropriately. And Los Ratones, in fairness to them, every single time G2 tried to do something on the side lane, they just cross-mapped. But the draft made it really, really impossible to kind of play that game. And, is that disrespect? Is that G2 not understanding how to draft? I think Dylan is pretty good at drafting, so I lean towards disrespect, but it could just be, Yamato or whoever's doing the drafting for Los Ratones just stomping in draft, right? But, fair enough, they did play that game pretty well. But I think Vitality and SK are not going to disrespect next week. Like, Mundo, don't even bother practicing Mundo. You're not getting Mundo next week, right? When both these teams must win the games. You're not getting Sion, so, plan appropriately is what I would.
Okay. By the way this show works, Jinjo, is technically the structure is just a loose way that we can talk about the teams and say whatever. I know your whole point was about like developing Velia as a fucking rookie jungler, but Peter just basically gave his thoughts on Lost. It's all good. It's all good. I'll say my part now anyway. I'll just address the point. Like, I will just say this. As Peter pointed out, here's the good news and the bad news. Oh, he's figured out how to play Mundo. The bad news is you're never getting that ever again. And the other win that wasn't on Mundo, as said, was the insane Shifters game, which, as you saw, caused like a generational crash out from Nuke because of how bad it was to lose that game. Like, essentially, the joke is Los Ratones don't even get the W for that. They get the assist on the self-damage that was done by Shifters to themselves in that game. I also agree with the point about G2 and teams like that. I think when they saw the first two wins of Los Ratones, the Heretics and the Shifters ones, were such bad throws from the other teams, I think top LEC teams thought, you know what, fuck it. Not only can that not happen to us, but let's even just troll pick. Let's just do stupid shit that like we would never pick against anyone else, because actually, if anything, tying into the first point, we want to show these guys don't belong in the LEC. We're going to show that like they're not even at the quality of the LEC, and we can do whatever the fuck we want. And because I agree, there's no universe Dylan Falco would do that if that was like game 5 of a world's draft right now. Like there's not even conceivable that would ever be picked. Like he would never listen to someone who said that. So on the Velia point, the big problem is the idea he's going to be like a top jungler. It's funny that Nemesis laughed at the idea that like people thought he should go and try that one split in Na'Vi or come last year to the LEC, because his whole thing was like, and then when you do badly and you get replaced, you'll never get a chance again. The joke is this: maybe there's a world Los Ratones ends up in the LEC, but there's actually a very real world where if they're cynical, they just fucking replace Velia. First of all, he was never some crazy prospect in the RL levels. He actually made his fame from Los Ratones. If he actually had been a crazy prospect, he wouldn't have been playing Los Ratones. He'd have been like some top LFL team or something. Secondly, so to me, I'm sorry, I don't even know if the talent is there to be a top LEC jungler. He's got some decent mechanics, mate. That literally is like saying he has legs and he can breathe air. Like every fucking jungler that wants to enter LEC has that threshold met. Then the other point is this. I actually think this split could do to him what Nemesis implied he was scared would happen if he joined Na'Vi, is you come up, you don't look good, you're one of the weak points of the team, you struggle to adapt to the LEC meta, and then after you are kicked out of this team, no one else touches you, mate, because they go, you know what, you're checker-ladded. I don't give a fuck how well you play after that. I remember what happened when that was there. You recurred, you're in that territory, you're never getting the second chance, mate. And so the worst part is this, I said this before, I actually think if he truly has a vision to be pro, playing in a team where last year wasn't wasn't even development. It was playing on a stream team where they stream your scrims. I can't think of a worse way to learn the game. And then also, I won't do the whole going into the personality side, but let's just look at playing styles. If you're going to look at the playing styles of Baus as a top laner, you will never play with an LEC top laner that ever plays like that at all. I even agree with Peter. If, look, in for a penny, in for a pound, there's no point joining the league and then trying to play like fucking irrelevant Up did back in the day. Just join and be Baus. That's the whole point of your team, basically. But that means you're going to be behind 1 bazillion gold half the games, and you're going to have a very limited champion pool, and you're going to have a very hard fucking time. And also, by the way, it is going to telegraph like a motherfucker that you have to go bot lane all the time. Like, that is just so blatantly obvious. There's not even going to be like a surprise in the game plan. And then I'll just throw this part out there. If the elements of your team that are also idiosyncratic are Nemesis and Reckless, good luck ever actually learning how to be a dominant jungler like you're saying, Jinjo. You are just going to end up as he has. You're on Mundo duty if it's available pay. Like, you're not doing anything that'll make you look sick. In fact, I would even say, even though I understand we're talking about last year's Na'Vi, not this one, and he would have been replaced anyway, the joke is not only did Rylek show that, like, when you just shit on this guy early, it's over, but this is exactly the sort of team you would have wanted to be in if you could. That's where you could. Rylek now looks like he could be an LEC jungle for many years. Might even be in a better team in a year or two, and maybe not himself for good. I actually think, I would say, it's one of the worst. I like it as the ugly point. It's not even that Los Ratones can't win games, but even if they win games, I don't know how this guy ever gets any shine, mate. Like, I don't know what he's at. What if he doesn't? If this team doesn't stay in LEC, what job is he advertising for? Like, they're just going to look at this and go, "I'll take any other jungle prospect, mate." No one's going to come knocking on his door. But I agree, they haven't developed him as a rookie. They just kind of throw him to the wolves.
I mean, and that's the problem, right? It's like if you're Velia and you have any clairvoyance about the situation, you understand these details.
Yeah.
And you make decisions accordingly. Now, I think it's a frustrating situation for those two to be in, and it's probably frustrating for their teammates to be ex-LEC players playing at a top level.
Sure.
They understand how to play the game. Why the fuck's my top laner proxying between towers? It's a very interesting situation where actually both parties have quite a reasonable point.
Yeah.
But the issue is, they're here for one split, possibly. They need results now. The implication of getting those results or not getting those results, now it's full game theory. Pick your poison as the main character. I feel bad for Velia. I actually think he's a good guy, and I think that he's someone that is quite talented. Do I think there were other junglers in line to be playing in LEC before him? Obviously. As you said, he probably would have been on a different team if he was a top prospect. But yeah, look, I hope that the rookies are not the ones that have to step up. I hope that they obviously have to step up a certain amount, but their teammates can try to teach and cover them as they can. We don't know what's going on internally, so it's hard to speculate. But look, if Bowser's not having fun playing the game, he can't be a franchise player. If Velia can't actually compete with these players in the league, what should he do? Of course he should gamble.
Yes, absolutely.
So look for clips, look for content, don't look to win. But obviously Crowny, Nemesis, Reckless all understand this slow Korean macro style that they like, and they perform with it. They will carry games.
Certainly.
But if your top and jungle cannot perform, again, if G2 are picking the rise and looking to impact side, then maybe don't. Maybe scale, because Baus is going to get slowly choked out. Just let them die slowly. Why are we giving Los Ratones range matchups on bot lane? And why are we trying to play fast against them? Let's just have a scaling battle. That's how I see it.
Also, I'll just say this. There's only one saving grace for Velia, in my opinion, which is luckily for him, he plays with Crowny. And if you don't know, Crowny's official role isn't bot laner. It's getting slapped on the botty every time this team fucking loses by his fan base. Like, for whatever reason, the joke is in every normal game, you're supposed to blame the jungler when he loses. No, because Velia's young and it feels like you're bullying him, Crowny just gets the shit every time they lose, no matter what, mate. It's just treated as he should just carry every team fight. So that's the only saving grace. I could imagine a world where if that was a more popular ADC, actually it'd just be Velia getting his head banged off all day long. Like, he'd be getting all the hit. But I actually feel like his fans generally, so far they've held back a little bit. He actually has had some restraint. I don't feel like LR fans have gone too hard on him. So for now, that's okay. That's one saving grace I'll give him.
It's a very tricky situation about players that are vocal, particularly in review. All the streams are scrimmed. People get frustrated in practice. Peter will know, Thorin will know. Anyone on the inside knows how intense days can be during practice. And look, Crown is one of those players who, he's a good player. He speaks his mind. He's stubborn in some ways, but overall he's a great guy and a good player. If you are a rookie coming into a team with that level of expertise, you need to have some thick skin. The problem is, though, sometimes he might go too far, or the tone is bad, or whatever, and the rookie's going to get pissed off too. So it's natural. There's going to be tension in those sort of situations, and from a fan perspective, it's extremely polarizing. It always has been for Crowny. Holy shit, he's got 12 CS per minute. He's 1v9 in games at Worlds.
Yep.
Oh, Crowny doesn't even have a team right now. And it's sometimes the unfortunate situation of being a strong leader and not getting results. If you're a strong leader and you're winning, everyone loves you, you're awesome. If you're the guy that's saying a bit too much when you're losing, sometimes it's better to shut up and just start playing a different, a more strategic game for your next off-season. But the truth is, good leaders with real character who think they're really good at the game will never, ever sell out on that moment. And Crowny will not. And that's why he will be a polarizing figure until he stops playing League.
Yes. I'll also say, for people who think I hate Los Ratones, think it through. I like Yamato Cannon, I like Crowd Shot. I'm actually sort of divided on the team. Part of me wants certain elements to fail. I think they deserve to fail. Part of me's like, fuck, it's kind of sucks that people I like have to fail. Okay. Are we going to your point, Peter?
Just one last thing on this. Like, I think as well, since we're talking about the rookies on the team, I think it's different for Verja and for Baus, right? Because Baus, you know, he his mental, he was willing to go to Korea and like run it down at the home of League of Legends. He was willing to go into Korean solo queue and literally just run it down on Sion and not give a shit. And you know, his mental, maybe it's the way he plays the game, maybe it's what he's like as a human being. You know, I've never interacted with him personally myself, right? But he seems to be the type of guy that is more than happy to, like, he would just take the criticism off his back because he's so used to it over the years. You know, how many times has this guy been reported in solo queue before his stream really, really blew up and things like this, right? I think for Veya, it's a bit different. He's not as popular on stream. He's not, he doesn't have as much to fall back on. And also his personality seems, again, you know, from what I've seen on streams last year, doesn't seem to be as easygoing and laid back as maybe Baus is, right? So I think it will disproportionately affect him versus Baus. I think Baus is just never going to change, right? Like, because so yeah.
And that's also how it goes sometimes. You get some feedback, and when there's elements of truth to it, you have a choice. You either push back against it, or you try to see, hey, okay, they're kind of right in these ways. Maybe I disagree in some ways, but I'm just going to let it breathe. If you're the player that pushes back, you will get beaten up, metaphorically. If you're the player that says, yes, sir, sorry, sir, you will stay on the team an extra split. And maybe by the end of that split, you will become good enough to continue. But that's all.
Yep.
Okay, Peter, where are we going for your ugly?
Okay, so my ugly point is I didn't realize this at the start of the season, but the more games I see, the more this has become clear to me, which is that an 11-game best of one single round robin will put teams in situations where once you get 6 wins, you're locked in playoffs. There is no disadvantage to coming 8th place versus 1st place, right? Except seeding, which, you know, doesn't really matter that much because only one team goes to first stand anyway, right? So given that you don't need to care once you get to like 5 wins with good tiebreakers or 6 wins, you could do whatever the fuck you want in those other games, and that can massively, massively impact the standings at the bottom of the table, right? And why have I mentioned this? Okay. I mentioned this in the MKOI situation because I want to talk about MKOI, and I'm going to talk about MKOI, and I'm going to talk about Azir for Jojo, right? And Jojo has not had that much success on Azir, right? There's no shame in this. You know, people will say, oh, you should be playing every champion to like an insane level. But no, you know, different players have different skill sets. You know, some players are RE players, you know, they're the type of players that they want to jump in, they have really good stat reflexes, they see good opportunities, but they don't necessarily always think about self-preservation in a team fight. You know, I'm mentioning Jojo Pion here, but it doesn't just have to be about Jojo Pion. Knight, right? Like, Knight has never been an insane idea, but you put this guy on Ari, you put this guy on Silas, he's going to 1v9 every single game. Similar thing with Jojo. You could put him on Azir, but you put him on Akali, you put him on Silas, you put him on Ari. This guy is gonna like stomp the game, or you know, if you're gonna put him on a mage, you put him on a mage with high burst, like say Victor, right? And he's really good on these champions. On Azir, every mid laner thinks that they can play Azir to a high level, but there's different levels of Azir that players have. You know, I used to have a player on my team called Jizuke. 39% win rate career on Azir, second most play champion in his entire career. Love to pick this champion on stage. Let me put it like this: whenever he was whenever he worked hard for the week, we let him play Azir on stage. We never expected to win a game when he was on Azir, but when he was on Rise, when he was on TF, if it's a must-win game, go to the Rise, go to the TF, go to like the other side things that you can like kind of impact the map on. But you've worked really hard this week. You're really confident on your Azir. Yeah, go and play that Azir. We're 2-0 up in the playoff series against a team against Dignitas who like we were never going to lose in the playoff series. You want to pick Azir? Go ahead, go pick Azir. And obviously we get stomped in that game, but it's kind of these things, right? So if you have these kind of discussions you want to have with your players, sometimes it's better to just pick the champion on stage, And when MKOI are in a game where they don't necessarily seem to want to win, they're just happy to go and pick this Azir. Was the same thing in Summer Split last year. And, it's good for MKOI because from the Jojopian perspective, he gets to play his Azir in competitive games. It's good from the MKOI coaching perspective because they can be like, what can we pick Azir into? It's not our strongest champion for our mid laner, but we get something from this, right? Like I can see how much I can limit push in draft, how much I can limit test in draft, how favorable the draft needs to be towards Azir for me to pick this in playoffs. But if you're one of those teams at the bottom of the table who's competing for playoffs, and you go and play MKOI in a game that they don't really care about, and they go and pick an Azir against you, versus say they go and pick an Akali against you, it makes a really, really big difference, right? And what I would say is that I think a lot of these teams at the top of the table, we see them kind of limit testing drafts, and it benefits. It can have massive impacts on the standings come the end of the split, and I think that's kind of a problem with the standings, especially given how the tiebreakers work this year, which is that in previous years, back when I was coaching, 2 years ago, there was a rule which basically said if you have as many wins as the last team that makes playoffs, you are guaranteed to not automatically be eliminated. You get to have a tiebreaker, right? So let's say 8, 9, and 10, or 8 teams make playoffs, 8, 9, and 10 are tied. Then you still you play a tiebreaker, right, between those guys. In the current system, you can just get eliminated just like that, right? Even if you're tied. So these tiebreaker things make a massive difference, and I think it's an issue with the format. But yeah, it's a problem, and it makes you quite scared because you have 3 teams that are automatically qualified going into next week. What are they going to pick in drafts? For the games that don't matter. Are they going to test drafts for playoffs? We'll see.
Also, if people don't know, just because Peter didn't complete the thought, the reason why that old tiebreaker system makes more sense is because the joke is this could literally happen to Los Ratones. If they fail to make it into the playoffs, they're going to feel really bummed because they beat like fucking MKOI and G2. But the problem is, unless those are the teams that are tied with them, that won't help. Those wins will not count for anything. So the joke is you're actually punished for beating the better teams and not having your wins against the lesser teams. So that's why I agree with you. It's better to do a tiebreaker for that. Okay, right. Obviously, Jinjo, you can see there was just a tiny little bit of bias there. You have to understand, Peter literally treats Jojo before he had his own child like it's actually his fucking spiritual son in league that he's coaching in the Little League game on a Sunday, So, like, obviously, you can go any angle on this. What do you think of Jojo on Azir? What do you think? Where are we going, mate?
Well, since we're on the ugly topic, I will start off by saying I don't know if Jizuke's Azir was poor because he was always flaming his jungler in solo queue, but maybe a little bit more practice on that. He might have been performing a bit better. Anyway, no disrespect, he's a good player.
Jizuki's a great guy.
So, as far as I understand, if I remember correctly, Jojo was playing Azir against Seren's Orianna. Is correct?
So.
Maybe I have
yeah.
So he got
I mean, like he's picked Azir in
sure.
matchups which are not bad for Azir, right? Like it's not.
Yes. For this specific game, I was going to say, for people that don't know Seren, because he's a new player coming up from the ERLs, this guy is astronomically aggressive in lane. And from what I've been watching from Jojo, he's also the same. So when I saw that mid lane matchup coming up, I knew the first 3 waves was going to be a freak show. And Jojo ends up getting solo killed, which is really unfortunate. Doesn't look very good. Sometimes when he's playing against the Azir, they're flash teleporting on the spot. So I don't know what's going on with Azir right now, but there's something in the air. And yeah, I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about like how pros end up learning counter picks, which is quite an interesting situation because, as you said, Jojo is phenomenally good at Akali, unbelievably good at Akali. And how pros end up figuring these things out is, well, there ends up being an OP champ on the patch. Let's say it's Azir in solo queue or whatever. And then the coach says, hey, you need to learn Azir. And they're like, they try it and then they realize I kind of can't. But then they say, yeah, but just let me pick a bit later and I can pick something into it. They pick their Akali or some other counter pick and it works. And over time, they keep running that same pattern of logic and they really, really develop this counter pick style. So it happens. And as Peter said, you know, players have skill sets and I think it's completely fine to play into that. There's enough champions in the game that it shouldn't be a huge issue, but sometimes there are those champions that if you don't play them, they need to be banned.
Sure. Okay, I obviously, by the way, I don't even mind that he does that as like his spiritual son. The joke is I do that and I don't even have any professional connection to Upset or Larson or any of the fucking players I'm biased to, so it's all good. With that said, it is interesting because basically what you guys didn't get from that, I'll read between the lines there. Peter had plenty of fucking time to check if he could play Azir or not. He had all the scrims, he had all the fucking official games. All I'm going to say is that just shows how bad fucking LCS was back then, how many wins he racked up on that shit. So one of the reasons why, there's two factors there, as you said. It's one thing to think you can play a champion. This is why solo queue was so misleading for people who don't know what pro players like. Bouse has found this. I bet he thought he could play stuff in solo queue. Like, I could play it. Like, no, you can't play it in the specific matchups against LEC top laners who are in the top half of the table, mate. Like, that essentially, you've like just graduated high school and they're in the PhD program, mate. Like, you aren't at that level of that champion. It's why the joke is when people go, well, I can't even believe this, like, Knight can't learn Azir. No, he can't learn Azir to play into, like, fucking Hongq and, like, the best players in the world, mate. That's his problem. It's not that he could, in solo queue, he would smurf all day long on the Azir. What are we talking about? The point, and then also, there's the other detail, which is, I totally agree. If you think of the profile of Jojo, he is going to have a really hard time on Azir. He is not the typical, like, mid laner that you would put onto that champion. Like, I'll give you the example. There's a type of ADC player that I see sometimes pick Ezreal when it's really OP, and then they get caught all the time in the team fights, and I want to just sit them down like the coach and go, have you ever played against Ezreal? It's a nightmare, isn't it? You can never catch him. He's always escaping out by, why are you going forwards? That shit goes backwards, and then you use the ult from really far away. Why are you like melee range with the ult and like getting caught by all the CC inside the fight? You think you're playing like fucking Zeri or something, mate. Like you're the wrong profile for that champion. Your brain doesn't pilot that. So the problem is you're going to have a really hard time. You can develop it, but the question is going to be, how much time is it worth it to learn essentially a different style of mid lane in this case from the one that you're already really good at and that you can already win games on today, and you can do it. That's why you can see why Peter did the big disclaimer. Realistically, they wouldn't do this again if this was the BO5 in the final. Like, there's almost no chance they would be giving him the Azir in any of the important games like this. They're doing it because they can sort of muck around a bit. They can maybe even reward him if he says, it's good, coach, give me a chance. And then also, I agree. The other point people will miss about the playoff format is, actually, since it's all BO1s anyway, you do realise that actually makes seeding even less valuable because you're not even guaranteed to get a weak team. Like, the joke is you could come first to get fucking G2. That's how silly the thing is right now. So if anything, you may as well just do whatever you want. Treat it like a warm-up. Get into the playoffs. And then you'll focus on the real game then. And magically, Dylan Falco will suddenly draft like a genius again. That will happen. So I agree on the Jojo point. I actually do think like that's a great example. I mean, if you just go watch the Heretics game, it's like the amount of times this guy's just walking right up to them with it. Again, think about how like old man Faker plays that champion. Bro, he'll only go in if he's guaranteed that his whole team's going and he's going to get the kill. Otherwise, good luck getting to him. Like, remember all those games where like people were inting into Faker and just walking in with sand soldiers? He'll be playing, you'll never see him on your screen, mate. It'll be a nightmare trying to get there. Jojo, that ain't you, mate. You are not that profile of player right now. So I don't hate it. You can try it every now and then, but I refuse to believe I'll see this in the final. Never.
And I mean, the point you made as well is very good about Knight, right? Like, it's not that Knight is bad on Azir, right? Like, Knight can come to the LEC and he'll be a top 3 mid laner on Azir, right? It's just that you put him on Ahri, or he's picking Azir into, like, literally the best mid laners in the entire world, right?
Yes.
Laning mid laners in the entire world. And then it's, like, less effective, right? It's all relative in these
And I already believe Knight, by the way, actually plays Azir because he's just trying to be a good teammate and play comps that people want to play in his teams. I actually think if he really did what I'd tell him to do, if I could get in his fucking ear and speak Mandarin, I'd just be telling him, don't ever, fucking they pick for you, mate. You're Knight. You know, I look around the room recently, like, you're him. Why you play that shit? You're basically goated on like about 10 other picks. What are we doing here? Anyway, that's the ugly portion out of the way. Now let's breath of fresh air, wipe the deck clean. Let's go to the good. So Jinjo, not Jojo, because Jojo would know nothing about what's good right now. Jinjo, what is good right now?
Oh, thank God we got rid of the ugly. I don't know, first talk show, I have to talk some drama. My God, my heart rate is too high. Well, I'm gonna be honest. My good point is like mostly good, but might have a little bit of a cynical undertone. You're gonna have to stay with me. Ice, Mr. Pentakill man. Let's talk about it. I reviewed every pentakill from this split. And there's been a lot of pentakills globally. So I had a look and I was watching the team fights. Who's responsible for this? Is Ice playing these team fights like a monster? Is Ice performing? Is he one of the best AD carries on the league? Because if you're getting this many pentakills and you're playing good in team fights and you're playing on that roster, on paper, you are that guy. I did some review and I'm not convinced. I'm not being sold this narrative that Ice is one of the top 80 carries in the league. So good with a little bit of bad. So first one. Against KCB, Trayson gets a great flank on Cannon. 4-5-man Maelstrom. Fight was over before it started. Ice did a great job cleaning up. Did he have to do any inputs that were impressive? Did he have to make any impressive positioning decisions? No. Should he get flamed for getting a pentakill? No. So I won't do that. Great job. Got a pentakill. Let's continue. Next one. Vitality decided to opt into Kalista Renata. The meta right now, for anyone who's not paying attention or hasn't read the patch notes, guys, the game is about scaling. There's less reasons to fight. There's no Artican. You can trade plates onto members that you want quickly. You can touch the turret, get a little bit of gold instead of sinking all your tempo into trying to break the turret. Macro has changed. The game is slower. Scaling is better. Okay, we're going for a little cheesy lane setup. We try to snowball and translate it into a win. That's fine. But what happens when you get to 30 minutes and you realize you're getting outscaled? Shit, guys, it's time to hit Baron. So Vitality make a Baron start, which is obviously risky. They got a pick on Seren. Seren was griefing. Ice played well mechanically in this one, in my opinion. He played quite good. His positioning was good. Nice flamethrower ulti. Nice backstep on the Talia W. Good pentakill. I was happy with that one. Is the Baron start from Vitality good? No, but they have to do it. Because their draft's not the best. So that's the second one. And the last one. He gets a pentakill in the base. Kazi flashes in, effectively giving it to him because the game's going to end, you know. Tries to make a superstar play. He's not going to sit in base like some other players in the league, which I will not mention. He gives the enemy AD carry a second penta. So shout out Kazi for padding that guy's stats and giving him a 6x on his contract next year. I don't personally buy it right now. I don't think he's a top AD carry in the league, despite the hype. I think he's sitting in the middle of the pack. Now, not the nicest thing to say, except Ice is not playing with the best team on paper, and I think he's doing a great job despite that. I think he's probably playing with one of the weakest supports on paper. So shout out Ice, you're a beast. I hope you get another penta, and I hope you get to get another penta playing like a complete mechanical freak, so I can shout you out.
No, I mean, I think it's fair that to say that, especially one of the second penta he got against Vitality was a bit fraudulent, but I mean, you know, that Vitality draft, in that game, there was one situation where it's Renata Kalista on mid lane. They hit the Mundo for like 20 seconds worth of spears, and they take like 60% of his health off, 65% after he rends, right? It's like, you know, towards the end of the game, because obviously, like, they're completely outscaled. I think he had an easier time of it once Vitality did their mini. So they did a mini throw before the Baron. The Baron was like the fatal throw, but I think there was one on the Dragon before that they didn't secure something, right? Which they were supposed to secure, and as a result, they didn't hit their marker for the snowball, and you know then it's completely doomed. It's pretty hard to play Kalista in this meta, right?
Yeah,
I think
and just
his life.
To jump in quickly, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think that them starting Baron was even bad. I think it was the best decision they could make. Just comp related, they had to do it. But sorry. Continue.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I think that they had to go for a riskier play because they did a really. It's just in my notes here. I can't remember what the exact play is, but they did like some really bad throw, and then the Nash was like whatever, like 55, 45, you know, or something. Right? It was fine. It wasn't. That's not the play that lost them the game. Well, it lost them the game, but it's not. Yeah, it's not what stopped their snowball. You know. So I think that he played that game fine, but also he's playing in Aphelios into with an insane front line against like a reasonably short range comp. And sure, he can get caught by like Rumble, Wukong, you know, combos and things like this. But essentially, as long as he has flash, it's going to actually be kind of difficult for them to get on top of him, because he also has thresh as well to help him reposition, right? Like, I think he played well, but it's not the hardest game ever for him to play. And KCB is KCB, right? Like, you get partial credit for that. So I do think Ice has been good. I think the problem Heretics have had is that they need him. So by replacing Flackard, what they essentially have said is, we are going to get an AD carry who is stronger hard carry in teamfight situations at the loss of shot calling, right? So, because that's the thing that Flackard is famous for. He's famous for playing weak side whilst his support roams, famous for shot calling in mid game, right? So he kind of has to do this to justify Heretics picking him up over losing Flackard, because essentially what Heretics have done is they put 2 rookies into shot calling positions. They put both their solo laners into shot calling positions. Shio doesn't seem to be a primary shot caller from what I've seen. Stend is not a primary shot caller, right? So essentially they've lost that shot calling in exchange for getting Ice. So Ice is kind of fulfilling his obligation. He has to be insane in team fights, or else there's no reason to pick him up, right?
And it's a little bit unfortunate that the reason I bring it up and why I have to talk about it is because the community perception is inflated and the analyst desk perception has inflated. The guy's done nothing wrong. The guy got 3 pentakills. He should be getting praise. The problem is he's getting too much, and I need to level it out. So it's nothing personal against him. It's just, I think it's overhyped.
I agree.
And he is playing well, in my opinion.
I mean, bearing in mind, this guy originally came in and had the crazy contrast against Crowley, where it's like he has to replace Crowley, and it's like initially he didn't. They just played to Adam. Then what happened was later, when Adam couldn't be like the carry and obviously didn't have the champ pool, they did play in BDS around Ice, but you actually saw that, like, the joke is, maybe for Striker, he was exactly what I wanted from Crownshot without the rest, which is a guy who can't talk and will have no input, and you just tell him like a bot where to go, and you position him like a turret, and then he just shoots people, which the joke is, maybe that's what you wanted from Crowley all along, whereas Crowley is famously the guy who's like, give me all the resources, I'm going to say this, we're going midwave now we have a team fight, and I don't think that's what they wanted. I think actually this guy's problem is, as far as I can tell, I would actually love to know what level of English he has now, and if he has any personality that he ever demands anything, because he looks to me for real like you're a guy playing in a game with a 4-stack and he isn't the 4-stack. Like, he's just a guy like, well, shit. In fact, I'll give you the obvious analogy since he's Korean. I've seen this story before. It's when Korean ADCs go to China and they haven't had enough years to learn Mandarin, right? They're essentially playing a game where it's like, fuck knows what their jungler's doing. I guess we're going in, and you just have to pick the champions that do that. It's why actually you can be no joke. If you're someone who likes to bet, for example, here's where you can get a crazy edge. Just do the bet after you've seen the draft. You can literally know with like a 70% likelihood if Ice has a chance in the game or not. If they give him a champion where he has to do like group with the team, positioning, etc., he's going to be in a really bad situation. If he's in one where it's just a straightforward, you're going to play a normal 5v5, front to back team fight, it's essentially a solo queue game, he's got a very good chance to win that, actually. By the way, his mechanics are clearly very good. He's actually one of those players, along with Kana. I hope one day just goes back to LCK. And you could actually, look, he wouldn't be on the best team. He could be on like the fucking mid-table team. He's not a bad player. He has nice mechanics. Seems like he follows all the fucking cues his team gives him. I'm speculating here. I just get that sense from the 2 teams I've seen him in now. So I know what you mean. They also did this, unfortunately, when he was having really good games in BDS. They tried to be like, is he the best ADC in the league? It's like, not really. Like, come on, man. Like, the difference is the others have extra responsibilities. They have like a more versatile champion pool. This guy, to some degree, is like a strong player, but he's having to deal with what I would imagine are very scoffed circumstances. With that said, it actually is a testament to his skill level that he can just play in what, as far as I can tell, is like the most limited circumstances ever compared to all the European ADCs. Yep. And he can actually outperform some of them on certain champions and certain teams. That's actually very admirable. I've got mad props for him. But I know what you mean. He's definitely not the best ADC. Come on. Read it back, guys. Read it back. I'm with you. Okay. Right. What about it's Peter's God now? What is your good point, Peter?
So my good point, I'm scared to make this good point because literally every single time I praise this team, they run it down the next week, and every single time I flame this team, they do insane the next week, right? And my good point is going to be on Vitality, and it's going to be on Humanoid.
I had a feeling.
No bias at all here, you know. And look, what I'll say about Humanoid is this week, he had 2 very good games. Okay, but one insane game on Kazi's birthday against against Giantex, where Giantex was the second one, against KCorp, where he literally 1v9 the game on Rise. He played insane in that game, and he had pretty good game the next day against Giantex. And Vitality's end of the season was basically KC, Giantex, G2, MKOI, and Los Ratones. And coming into last week, when they need to win at least 2 of those games, and probably 3, and you looked at that end of the schedule, playing the top 4 teams in the league in Los Ratones, thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit rough for playoffs, because they've lost all the teams around them. But this week they played. It was back to seeing like vintage Humanoid. Vintage Humanoid is not the guy who's going to smash you 1v1. He used to be. He did that back in the day, but I mean, the Humanoid that has come now is about playing smarter through the side lanes, and sometimes dying in the side lane in exchange for things that happen on the other side, of the map. What I would say is against G2, sure, he had a bit of a rough game against G2, but basically he's playing Yone into Azir, so he needs to play really, really aggressively. But he has a scaling jungler into Xin Zhao, right? And the one thing that really, so normally you wouldn't pick this, but because they have Bard versus Alistar, Bard should be able to go mid to kind of equalize that advantage, right? So you expect Xin Zhao to have more of an impact on mid, you expect Bard to be there more than Alistar. But they didn't play properly with Bard in the early game. They didn't get vision around mid properly. He basically got completely fucked as a result of this. And, he got really far behind in that game, and it's really hard for him to do anything once you're as behind as he was. I think he did well to get back into the game, and then obviously he just missed that key ult later on in the game, and it looked dreadful, and people can then go and say, he wasn't that good in that game. But, a lot of the mistakes his disadvantage in that game is down to draft and about Vitality not playing properly to their win condition, right? In the early game. So I think Humanoid had a pretty great week. I think Vitality have shown that they can match up against the top teams. But they do still need to win one game next week. They're against MKOI, who haven't locked playoffs. So MKOI are going to be coming out for the blood. And, if they have Los Ratones as the final game of the season. And if things go in any way, they're any way close, that is going to decide the last playoff spot. Because Vitality on 5 wins, Los Ratones on 4 wins. Los Ratones win that game, they go to 5 wins, they get the head-to-head. Even if Los Ratones win one game, then they play Vitality, both of them on 5, the win of that game will basically lock playoffs. So that is like the most important game of the entire best of 1 phase next split. But from what I saw from Vitality this week, it was good to see Humanoid and Kazi actually playing at a very high level against the top teams in the league after having, let's be honest, like kind of a rough first 2 weeks of the season. And kind of it gives me hope. It also makes me wonder whether this is one of those classic Humanoid situations where, he needs to feel motivated to want to play the game, and they put themselves in a situation where they're almost out of playoffs. So now you get to see him back again. I'm going to choose to be the optimist. I'm always a Humanoid optimist, and I'm going to say this is his actual level. He was just messing around the top 2 weeks. And come to playoffs, Vitality are going to be great. But watch as they lose to Los Ratones and miss playoffs. So let's see.
Yeah, I don't know where I was reading, but there's something about a old Chinese military strategy about putting your troops like with their backs against the river.
Yeah.
And in the same way that they have like no real choice other than to all make the same decision to go forward. Of course, some people could decide the water is a better choice, but yeah. On the Vitality note, I agree with you. When I watched those games, I actually thought the recovery from Humanoid on the Yorin game was impressive. I do think that little 2v1 against the G2 dive at the tier 2 bot turret. G2 are griefing a little bit. Humanoid gets a bit of superhero back in him, but yeah, I actually agree. I actually don't think the negatives were his fault, and I actually don't think the positives were necessarily him astronomically smurfing. So it's actually quite strange. But Humanoid had a great week. That Rise game was phenomenal. I actually have on Vitality to shout out 2 players there. I think Nako is one of the best players in the league. I don't know if that's a hot take or if people agree. I think he's, for me, I'm gonna straight up say top 3. From what I've seen from that guy in solo queue, how he inputs, how he plays, I think this guy is insane. And any team that wants to throw money at him, I don't know how long of a contract he's on, they should be throwing the whole house, the keys.
Cough, G2, cough. Oh, sorry,
everything.
I had a bit of a cold there.
That guy's insane. And yep, so shout out to him. And also, what I've noticed is I think Linces, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, this guy knows how to play fast. for a younger jungler who's come in, he's on time. He knows how to squeeze little tempo advantages, and it's been really impressive to watch him, particularly when he plays Vi. So yeah, shout out to him as well.
Right, I'll just run down this one quick, because I'll just say, first and foremost, even though also he has the personal connection, it's actually games like this, which is why people like Peter can never quit Humanoid. This is why. Because he'll still do this. Even the play you're talking about on the other one, he'll still go for plays. So every now and then he's always had hands with it. He'll always pull off a play every now and then that makes you go, oh, still in there. Oh, my God. Even though, as I will point out, it was 2021. If you're wondering, like, you're literally 5 years in the past now, guys, when you're going, but it's almost like he's mad. Yeah, you're mad if you're still fucking bringing that up. That is so fucking long ago, half a decade. But okay, he does still occasionally do this. Also, I will say, unless you're a Humanoid fan, not the greatest game to watch. Some would say a little bit boring. And also, I'll tell you what, the most generous people on Kazi's birthday were the coaching staff of KC. What a wonderful gift to give them that comp. Tell you what, they were basically, you know what, Kazi and Humanoid, you're going to have to really fuck up to lose this one. So you know what, you have at it, mate. Have some practice, target practice, go for it. That was fucking wild. Like anyone, maybe that was like the angle where it's like, we needed that game, because I've got a point coming later, don't worry. We needed that game for the people who were going a little bit too hard on the Kiahu hype. Because that game's to remind you, like, settle down. Listen, settle down a little bit. And so, yeah, I don't have that much more to say. It was a good game. Fair play. Obviously, as usual, I'll wait to see it in the playoffs before I actually fucking start celebrating it, Peter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the BO1 doesn't mean cook it for me. It doesn't touch the sides, Humanoid. Come on, mate. You were supposed to be the heir to caps or something. But anyway, the point is, no flame. You did it this week. That's all good. The good news is this. Every week that he doesn't do it, I just get to put Humanoid in my bad or my ugly section. So listen, he always gets on the show, but almost a permanent member of the show at this point in time. So let us go on, because I am going to pick as my good point. I teased it there. Do you know what? People think, because people are just idiots, unfortunately. If you ever actually listen to my analysis beyond the jokes and like fucking trolling with fans, I actually never lie. I've said this a million times. I've never lied in my professional career. It's actually a record I'm quite proud of. So I always do actually say what I think. Like, even if I think a player's overrated, if this is how you know people never listen to the shows. Mate, I probably spent something like 3 years having to fucking glaze Reckless, who I just despise as a human, because he still was very good at that conservative ADC style. And if you had the right team around him, that flaw will win you a lot of games, actually. The question is it the best style? Should he play it that way? That's all by the by, though. So I say that to say, people just assume because I despise KCorp fans, I'm always going to find a way to hate on them, right? Well, I could easily do that right now. I could take the very game we just talked about. I could take the fact they almost lost the fucking Los Ratones. I could angle it as, this is all just BO1 hype, guys. Like, in the real playoffs, listen, G2 will get it together. MKOI will clean up the game a little bit, and they won't be so sloppy with El Yoya. And you know what? Fuck it, maybe even GX is good. No, you know what? Scrap all that. KCorp is not only the best team in the LEC, they actually look like I am amazed for a new roster how much actual fucking depth this squad has. Like, they can win like all types of League of Legends games at the moment, with the exception of that one draft. We've now tested the exception that proves the rule. They can have an early game that's fucking dope. They've got like the support jungle interaction. They've still got the best player in the LEC. He's called Kana, by the way. And then even the Kiahu guy, look, I'm not going to go crazy, but I'll tell you what, I had no expectations whatsoever for this guy. He's shown me some interesting games. He's fit the squad immediately. Presumably, like the Ice Crowny joke I made earlier, he brings none of the downsides of Vladdy. The personality, the talking back, etc. Looks like he just goes, yes, boss, and then does his job like a fucking Marine in StarCraft or something. So I actually think this squad looks fucking dope. Like, my one concern is this. Yeah, if they go to first stand, which I think is going to happen, by the way. I think they're going to win the split, by the way. If they go to first stand, my one concern is, how is Kiahu going to do against Knight or fucking Chovy? And, that's going to be hard. But aside from that, mate, considering people love to flame a unit, it's just G2, innit? It isn't, mate. Like, this KC squad looks fucking fire. Like, I love the upgrades. And I think actually, yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm excited for KC. I enjoy watching them play. What do you think, Jinjo?
No, I would tend to agree. Actually, the first thing I wanted to start on, I'm not sure if my information is 100% correct about Kiahu, but I think he was quite contested in the off-season. From what I understood, they had to do some convincing to bring him over to Europe. I don't know if this is 100% correct or not. But I think that this is not a player that was, I guess it's the next best Korean upcoming pro who's like, well, I guess you don't have a spot here. I think he had options, from my understanding. I think he's a brilliant player, and I agree with you that KC look really insane. When I watch Kalist's pro views, I think he's a really insane player. I think Busio, maybe EU fans don't know too much about him. He's real good. He's a player that wasn't a support player originally, as far as I understand. Maybe you know a bit more about this, Peter.
Yeah,
I think maybe he was...
He was ADC, I believe, wasn't he? Am I wrong?
No, he was mid lane, and Papa Smithy basically told him, "You're not going to play mid lane."
Right.
In
yes.
LCS, so go play support.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a great line. He was right.
When you look at him play the game, he now has the understanding of how to play support mechanically. The vision game and how to move around the map. But mechanically, he's real skilled. So him plus Kalist, look, if they get along and they can review games and they can have tough conversations, I think it's very clear they'll be the best bot lane in the league. So yeah, I think they're pretty great.
Yep. For me, fully agree. I always make this mistake with KC where I see that they make massive roster changes and think it's going to take them time to gel. But I always forget that, like KC, there's a lot of pressure or org expectation on you that you start your preseason really, really early.
Right.
Because I come from the system where, maybe teams take a 1 week or 2 week boot camp in December, and then you come into the new season, and then obviously you expect teams not to have all the synergy built up. But I always forget that KC are basically the first team to start scrimming in December, and that lets them build synergy up, which means I tend to underestimate them when they come into a new season. Yeah, I think their ceiling is really, really high. I think Busio has the potential to be best sport in the league. I think he was, from the outside, the best player on FlyQuest in summer. Obviously, Inspired was doing all the shot calling, but if you didn't know that and you just looked at purely on their play, Busio would have been the best player. He was pretty good at Worlds. He's been probably the best support in NA for quite a long time. I think he's going to be a massive addition to this team. I have my reservations on Yike at the start of the year, but it looks like a lot of that was kind of being shackled to Vladdy's inconsistencies last year. So he's kind of a bit unleashed, which is great to see. Canna, ironically, I think Canna hasn't been that insane. I think Canna's been fine. He's still the best top in the region, but I don't think he's been hard carrying as hard as he was last year. He's just kind of been stable.
That J-Skate was pretty good.
He's still stable number one.
Sure.
It's not bad.
Sure.
Yeah, but the people that have impressed me are Kalist and Yike. And if they keep playing like this, they're going to be very, very impressive going into the playoffs. Let's see. Let's see how is this a G2 slump? Is this MKOI slump? We'll see when we get into best of fives. But for now, they're clearly the best team in the league, right? I think that's all there is to say.
Also, by the way, since Busio adjusted immediately, bad news if you're an NA fan. If you ever get a good player, we're taking them all, mate. They're coming all over to Europe, and you can just have all the fucking shittest from NACL. There you go. We've solved that NACL problem for you. There you go. Enjoy it, right? And you can have the bad Koreans, because you don't have any money left, so enjoy that. I could have made that bad good, but it's not an NA podcast, is it? They're not even fucking watching. I'm just talking to nowhere right now. I'm talking to a brick wall like that meme. Okay, let's go to the bad now. So, Jinjo, what is bad?
Well, now that I'm reflecting on my good point, which was low-key flaming ice a little bit, maybe I should throw some good back into the world for karma's sake. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about G2's current condition, because I don't think it's been particularly impressive to watch. And I feel a little bit for them with maybe their meta read or also maybe their players' skill sets. For example, I see Hans Sama as a guy that likes to squeeze in lane, and I see Caps as someone who basically can play anything. But you can kind of pick between two mid lane styles right now. It seems you can pick a vacuum mage, Azir, Asol, any scaling mage, Talia. Or you can go for the roaming mages. You can go for Ryze, Talia, things like this. Now the problem is, which side lane are you going to play for? Because bot is relatively slow right now. A lot of the champions are scaling, and top, there's a lot of Rumble, Cassante, Sion, a lot of action going on there too. So perhaps G2's meta read was a little bit heavy on roaming champs. I think maybe he had 2 games of Galio and Ryze, and I think the side lanes were not set up super well for him to succeed in that regard. I still think the most of the time they've been playing the Azir and some other champions, but Hans Sama as a concept, I don't see him being great on these hyper scaling champions. I think he's much better at the lane dominant Lucian, Draven, Caitlyn maybe, Varus, things like this. So it looks like they've gone for a Corki Prio a little bit higher than the Inara, and I think in the later games they actually ended up changing that, but I think that hurt them, particularly. I think it was a game versus... I'm not sure the game. But yeah, against KC, they didn't have the best game as well. They went for an experimental Lee Sin top. Maybe it went well in scrims. We will never know. Maybe they wanted to test some things. Sure, it's fine. Happens. It's best of one. But again, it's really hard to end the game. It's really hard to snowball right now. I see scaling being a much better option. So yeah, having Lee Sin top and Galio mid, as soon as I saw that draft, yeah, it was looking rough from the start. And another thing I want to talk about with their drafting strategy is, look, they picked up the Anivia, and Caps is good at Anivia. He's no Nemesis, but he's good at Anivia. The problem is, Ryze is a B1 pick. So on red side, people usually want to respond with their counter pick on 1-2 just instantly so that they can see other roles. But the issue with Anivia is there are other champions in the game that can really fuck with Anivia's ability to carry. For example, Caps is playing against Jarvan and Bard as Anivia. It's a much harder game than what Nemesis had to go through, as an example. So I think they didn't really cover Caps enough in that situation where it looked not that easy to team fight versus Ambessa as well. So the timings in which they're picking things and the priorities that they're picking things, I think, are a little bit off. That's from a draft perspective. From an in-game perspective and a gameplay perspective, their skirmishing seems really indecisive. A couple of times I'm seeing Labrov, he's getting chunked out a little bit, and then he's kind of waiting in a bush, and he wants to go again, and his teammates are like, yo, it's time to farm, or go back. And he's sending it, they're half committing, or Caps is going to send it, but the other teammates are not. It looks really indecisive. And I think it cost them a lot. The game versus MKOI, they opened to get control from side lane instead of mid. They didn't fully commit, and then the mid lane rotates, Super gets a triple kill on Yunara. Okay, game's pretty cooked. And then even versus KCB, they extended hard into their blue side jungle. People are just not ready. Caps flashing forward on Azir. Looks pretty trash. So, look, players seem to be overcompensating for this indecision with hyper-aggression. I don't think anyone needs to be panicked about G2's condition. They change up a little bit about their draft, and they try to get a bit more on the same page about how they want to play fights. They will be back, and they will be playing Great League very soon. No stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think your point about Hans Summer is a really good one, which is that, you think about Hans Summer, what do you think? You think Kalista, Draven, Lucian. For me, Kog'Maw as well, Kog'Maw Braum. I remember he used to pick that with Mickey a lot. But all of these lane dominant like 2v2s, they were never picking Kog'Maw to scale, right? They were picking Kog'Maw Braum, and then chain ganking, with Braum, right? So I think that it's a difficult meta for Hans Summer. We called out Kazi as well on the Kalista. Like, Kazi is a really good Kalista, but Kalista's very hard to play right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair point. I think that they have sometimes relied on Hans Summer to get lane advantages a lot, to the extent that it's kind of hindered. They're coming into mid-game situations in situations which they're not always comfortable. Right? And, Hans Summer over the course of last year, because Skewmon was a bit inconsistent in Winter Split, but Hans Summer was pretty consistent for the entirety of the year last year. And he was kind of the rock that G2 could rely on, consistently be coming out of lane with leads, and it always gave you something to play around, which meant that Caps could flip it all he wanted, and sometimes he would get massively ahead, sometimes he would be a little bit behind, but he could take those risks because you knew you could always rely on Hans Summer to be coming out of the lane with that advantage. Right? So I think that's kind of impacted a little bit about how they play in the mid game. I think also they're kind of experimenting and kind of disrespecting. It's a good point. The Lee Sin Galio draft. That's like a scrim draft. You better be winning that game in 20 minutes, or else you're just not winning the game. Right? You have literally zero damage on that comp. I think also they were kind of limit testing a little bit in the Los Ratones draft. But yeah, I mean, I assume they're going to be fine coming to playoffs. For me, I wish that G2 would be more consistent and less preserving energy in the regular season, because this is a team at the end of the day which Europe pins their hopes on to do well internationally, because frankly nobody else does well internationally except G2. And it always worries me when I see that, they're not sending a statement from the start of the split, but we've seen it enough that, they'll be more than fine in playoffs. They're going to end up in playoffs as a 6, 7, or 8 seed and like screw Navi or like GX or even KC, whoever gets them in the first round, you've worked so hard to get the number 2 seed or number 1 seed and you'll get G2 in the first round. I agree they're going to be fine, but I always feel uncomfortable that they don't like set a statement in the regular season.
Yeah, by the way, on what Peter said at the end there, sadly, that is actually why I even think everyone's meant to. Put it this way, I think this is the only team that can have a result like this as one of the favourites and not actually be at all fazed by it. Essentially, it's not until someone literally has them on the ropes in a playoff series that they'll even think like there was anything to worry about. They'll think as long as we make the playoffs again, doesn't matter how seeding, we're just going to power up as the season goes on. We're going to try some things out. If we win them, if we lose, don't worry. We don't have to really decide our identity till we're in the playoff series. And the problem you have right now is a whole bunch of the players are playing badly. Like collectively, I don't think the 3 traditional carries in the team have ever played worse on aggregate in the LEC. Like this is nuts. Normally one of them carries like either Hansama's level's really high. Obviously years and years ago it was Caps. I will say that has been years at this point in time before he was really like Caps, the one that everyone remembers. And then I actually think Broken Blade's looking a little bit fucking long in the tooth, mate. This is your 5th year in G2. I'd get cooking if I were you, because as I said in that earlier conversation, people like the Nakos of the world, they're the ones coming for your spot, mate. Like, you can't just keep this forever. You've never really had the insane international performance. The problem I think in the team right now is this. There's a narrative concept in American sports when you have big franchise teams, which goes that in teams, everyone who wins the championship isn't equally like successful because they won the championship. You have the concept of like, who was the one driving and who's just a passenger. Obviously, the joke would be like sometimes the support on some teams, they're not going to be the one considered the one that won the championship. It'll probably be the carry ADC or the expert mid laner. Here's the problem, right? With that comes this narrative concept of at some point in time, you almost have this conversation in the team of whose team is it? And the term they use, in the same way as you drive in the game, is when is it time to pass the keys to the other guy? Like, you're the aging star, you've had your best days, you're not the best, but there's a guy in your team now who could be the man and you could play around him. I'm sorry, at this point in time, here's an edgy one. It's not even a hot take point, maybe there's an edgy take. I think at this point in time, I'm sorry, Caps isn't the fucking man. Maybe Hansama was the last few years if you look how they played in G2. Here's who you are handing the keys to now, Skewmond. That is the player. I want those two players to sit down, look in the mirror and go, we are here now to be the best supportive element mid in ADC in the game. It's your time, Skewmon. Everything that Inspired did the last 2 years, you can do it, mate. You run the game. You decide when you play the aggressive champion. You don't ever pick for fucking to be safe. You don't ever by the way, if Broken Blade says come top, you say if I feel like it, or I'm going here instead. I want that for this team, because the best player on this team is Skewmon, mate. Like, it just is. Like, he showed it last year. He still looks like he's got it now. The rest of them have all sorts of issues, which I do imagine they'll get a kick up the arse when the playoffs. There's a lot of clutch players in the team. That's all great stuff. By the way, the one thing I will say is complete arse, even though I realize this is the good section, is, bro, that I'll tell you the one decision that has aged purely already, even very short amount of time, is if you really had a choice, Remain, between getting Busio and sticking with Labrov, I don't know if did Labrov pull you out of a burning car, mate? Did he give you a kidney? I don't know what's going on there, mate. Like, I'll never understand that decision. I get it that it's the same strategy you did before. You keep the same roster for 2 whole years. You give them the full time to develop. The idea is they take the experiences internationally. They do something more with it. I think you've missed on this one, mate. If you'd have gotten Busio, they would have changed the whole game. Because I think that's the main concern for me so far, is some of these games do look like Skewmon did the right, time to play for this guy to get us back in. It's like, mate, just play. You should be the man, in my opinion. I think you are the best player potentially in the LEC, but in the jungle position. So I want to see him have his Inspired, I reign with the iron fist and I'm calling everyone noobs in fucking scrims. That's what I want from Q1. There you go. Right, Peter. Who the fuck is in your... Oh, I think it's the bad, actually. Who's in your bad section?
Yeah,
Guys, switch them around, sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Also, technically, I just realised I did earlier say like a G. I meant Rumble game for Canada, of course. Yeah, go on, Peter.
So my bad point comes actually from a comment to our video from last week, right? Which was about Fnatic and people kind of flaming my take on Fnatic not playing properly around Emperor's top lane, right?
Yep.
And so I went back and did some VOD review, and then I went and watched their games this week. And actually, the more I watch Fnatic, when I watch Fnatic, I think, okay, so Empiros is obviously looks like the weak link of Fnatic, right? It looks like his wave control is kind of shit. It looks like he is getting targeted and chain feeding when he gets targeted. And we just have example number 4 of the season where where Wonder just puts him into the dirt in the SK game this week. But when I go and look at those games and I go and study those games, it's because of how Vladdy is playing mid wave. And every single time, Vladdy has the opportunity to bounce wave and freeze, or freeze wave. Even when there's opportunities where his side lanes have set up a stack where he can go and play into, or he has the opportunity with an early game jungler to go and play for his early game jungler, he's playing selfishly for himself. He's purely playing to freeze his lane. He's purely playing to survive laning phase, right? And when you have this impacts bot lane's ability to play, right? Because Lospa, you look at him in ERLs, Lospa's like the type of support that wants to flip a lot, but he's not able to flip because he knows his mid laner is almost always going to be second to the play. And Empiros is somebody who was used to playing strong side in ERLs. He would flip things, not think about his wave control that much. He would just basically just try to trade aggressively into you and rely on jungle or support or mid lane sometimes to just come and fix his wave when things went wrong, right? And those things are not being done on this team, which is why Fnatic often, like the games where Fnatic win, are games where basically Vladdy, because he's playing so selfishly, is able to just scale into the game and do something. But the games where they lose, they get absolutely fucked because your mid laner is basically just playing just for himself, right? And that means that your side lanes can't do anything. And the more you get behind as your mid laner, because the enemy mid laner is roaming, he's making plays, he's getting more and more gold, the more passively he plays and the more defensively he plays, right? And for me, this is a worrying sign early on in the season because he's not playing in this way just with Azir, right? And I think even with Azir, you could roam too, right? You're not going to gank somebody with Azir, but you can fog into top or you can fog into bot to help them fix their wave, right? Or get river control or things like this, right? But he's doing it with Talia, he's doing it with Ryze as well in situations where he shouldn't be doing it. And for me, this is a really concerning thing for playoffs because I think it means that Fnatic are going to be able to beat teams that don't know what to do with mid priority, that don't play consistently with mid priority. But when they play against like the really, really strong teams, where the mids are able to roam really, really well, you know, you play against a G2, you play against a KOI, right? You give Jojo or Caps like free priority, they're just going to roam on the map. They'll try to kill you one-on-one, but they're more than happy to get their junglers ahead, right? They're more than happy. And you give Skewmonder or Illuria those leads, they're just going to 1v9 the entire game. So that worries me about this version of Fnatic. But I think basically my point is, I was saying that Fnatic weren't playing the Empiros properly, and that, you know, they'd made a recruitment mistake by signing Empiros. But I don't, because, you know, last year they were just playing purely for bot lane. They were playing purely for upset. And I don't think it's that. I don't think it's a recruitment mistake. I think it's that their mid laner is just not playing to enable the map properly. He's just playing in a really, really selfish way, and that makes it very, very hard for their two recruit. So it's a bit more nuanced about Fnatic. So yeah. So Vladdy, I think, needs to play more aggressively, right? Or else they're not going to go anywhere this year.
Yeah, look, it makes a lot of sense. I think sometimes if a rookie comes in, they have a good performance, and now their status is elevated, that there's huge amounts of pressure to maintain performance. And fans look at KPIs often, and like the KPI for them is CS per minute, and like kills and assists and deaths. So I understand, like from a individual perspective, you know, you make the decision to freeze the lane over moving. Most people won't see it. Most people won't see the pressure that you're applying to the map by clearing vision. Your bot lane took a shit trade, for example, in Los Ratones versus Na'Vi. They're playing the Caitlyn Karma. They made a couple mistakes in the early trade. They need help now. And Velia actually ended up getting super screwed over for that, losing his bot side. But yeah, as an example, people need to understand why I guess he does it, but at the same time, it's no excuse. You know, when you're playing a champion that's meant to be impacting a map, you better impact the map. And I'm sure in their reviews, they're no stranger to this, and hopefully they get that sorted out. Because yeah, as Peter said, if you give a good team mid prior, they will be diving side laners.
I was actually going to, as my bad point, because obviously I didn't know the context in which Peter would do this. I was actually going to do Fnatic macro, but he sort of just did it anyway, didn't he? That's what, like, it all was the entire, like, linchpin fulcrum around. So I will just say, the problem with Vladdy is, it does look like it's fucking his teammate. He not only got to bring his mate to play top lane, but, like, he didn't learn the fucking shit from KCorp, mate. He's still here, just like, I'm the man, just do whatever I want, lol. And I have to say, I thought the performances have been just flip a coin. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're just whatever. And I'm a little bit disappointed, because I did actually think this was a chance to refresh his career and actually prove that, like, actually KC was wrong, or they created the wrong environment. I'm actually a stud. Like, I mean, the joke would be, this doesn't work because he's in Fnatic now, shit in the bed too early. But he's supposed to have been the next Humanoid. Like, actually, this is sort of the sleeper pick to become a really great mid laner with mad skills, and he's creating solo queue and he goes for all the players. So, to me, he has been a bit sus in that regard. And I know what you mean. Like, put it this way, I don't care what anyone says about all the fucking role balance. In Europe, you have to have a really good mid laner to win. That is just a fact. It's why, if anything, like, the joke is, I used to do that thing because I actually thought one day Nemesis would win the LEC. I used to say, if he ever wins the LEC, he'll be the worst mid laner to ever win, because it's a very clever backhanded compliment, because actually only the greatest players ever won the fucking, from the mid lane. It was like Humanoid, Frog, and Expect, like the GOATs, mate, the Perks, Caps, it was the most GOAted players ever. So, like, if anything, Jojo got to join that class when he won last time. Vladdy's in that class technically, but he only stepped his foot in for briefly and he wasn't in any more finals. So I am a little bit underwhelmed by his level of play. And I do think if he actually just plays, even if he's even like the fourth best mid, they have a real chance to do something in this team. Because as messy as the macro is, they're still getting loads of winning positions. Like, fucking hell, mate, you could close some of these games. So yeah, I like that angle. I think it's true. And I do think, you can't just own, again, like the LR angle, you can't only focus Emperos and tell him he's shit. Like, there's a reason, one, that he's here, and then two, the guy who brought him here isn't helping him out. Like that's fucking, he's making the game worse for him. Like, that's the most brutal part about this. That's even your mate. Like, don't tell me about it, just turn to him and tell him and fucking play it. So anyway, I like the angle. Anyway, the last point of the show is mine. So it's okay, I can freestyle. I've got the ability to move, like the KCorp now, between the different stages of the game. And I will say, for my last point, I think this is bang on as well. Remember, if you go back into the not too distant past, the actual team people will tell you looked like the best LEC team was MKOI. Here's what's bad about MKOI, and this has been a through line in the entire time they've had this roster, which they've obviously kept. They have never, ever been a dominant team. Ever. Even when they won the split, these were fine margins, these were back and forth series. As a team, you think even of their style, they are the definition of like a scrappy team. That's even the style that they play, all those crazy skirmishes all over the place 24/7. Also, they don't have the craziest firepower / knockout ability. So even when they're like executing, it's always on a fucking knife edge with a Merwin or a super moment. You never know which bloody way that's going to turn. Then also, for whatever reason, we discussed it earlier, they just decided to go, you know what, sprinkle a bunch of Azir games in there, really waste everyone's time in the playoff VOD reviews. Like, just make people have to watch 5 hours of shit that's never going to come up later. So, and then lastly, I will say this: anyone who knows any team with Elyoya in, he is the literal fucking barometer of his teams. If he is going well and everything is working well, by default his team is working well. They're going to be really good. There's no like Skumon shit I was saying earlier, where like he's looking really awesome, but the team's really bad. If Skumon looks good, if Elyoya looks good, his team is looking good, or his team is looking good and so Elyoya looks good. You decide which way it is. He's the fucking god emperor of this team. He's the one playing StarCraft with the other ones. He just is. So I tell you what, he has had some fucking outrageously sus games the last few weeks. Like, he's had somewhere it's like, bloody hell, man, that better not happen in the playoffs. So it's not even to hate on them. One thing I appreciate about this team is I actually think with this roster, they're overperformers. If you look at the last year, I even think they started the split pretty fucking hot. Like, it's looking like, well, maybe they do just get to be the number one team. But this is why they will always be a hell of a team to watch in the playoffs, because bloody hell are the margins fine for wins or losses. Thoughts, Jinjo?
Yeah, I think, look, from my understanding, once again, when I was on MAD, I went to Berlin for a little while because I couldn't go home to Australia while my teammates went on break. So they sent me to the LEC office to just watch scrims and try to ask the coaching staff things and pick up some new knowledge. And I remember watching in the reviews, like, Elyoya is a very good leader. He's very strong-minded. And I think that some of the mistakes they're making in these games, I'm sure Melzed, him, and the rest of the players are going to sort it out pretty quick. But yeah, I think, unfortunately, Super has been underperforming a little bit in these recent games. But look, I think his It's just one of those things. It's best of ones, bit of volatility happens. You're playing against Caitlyn Elise, you get cocooned randomly. Sure, man, you're gonna die. Like, when's the last time you played against that champ on support? But yeah, overall for me, I think by the time playoffs comes, they'll be back, and I have good faith on them. And Jojo's Azir is gonna 1v9 in playoffs. Bookmark it, upvote it,
yeah,
and check it out here.
I mean, yeah, but let's see. Like, I mean, the issue. I mean, he has like a ridiculous win rate on Azir in NA, right? Which always puzzled me because, you know, he plays Azir like it's Ari. You know, he wants to flash Arin. You know, like it's very unique way of playing Azir, I would say. But what I'd say about MKOI is that this is a team that looks like it thrives on adrenaline. You know, you go and watch them at the homestand. You go and watch like Merwin go the flexing whenever he does his insane plays and things like this. And sometimes, you know, regular season can feel like a bit mundane when you have that type of player. Obviously, it's not ideal. Obviously, as a coach, you don't want to allow it. Obviously, as a player, you don't want to like feel less pumped, right? But when you've won a title, when you've had the year that MKOI had last year, like sometimes there's always a fall off, right? What I would say though is that I think that they are more than G2. I feel that MKOI are limit testing a bit in draft and seeing what they can get away with. You know, I've mentioned the Azir thing, but I think there's other things that they're testing for playoffs. I don't think that they believe that there is a world that they were ever going to miss playoffs once they won the first game of the season. Because I think they were against, was it first game or was it second game where they beat G2 and they beat KC first two games of the season. And I think that once they've won those two games, like, you know, it everything drops a little bit, right? So I think that they're going to be fine in playoffs. I think Illuria has had a few rough decision-making things, but I will say that one of the big things that I would say Illuria and Alvaro had to work on was kind of how slow they were playing from winning positions in mid-game. You know, sometimes they would push into early, they would play too fast in the mid-game, where they're like pushing deep for deep vision before their side lane is properly set up when they're not in a winning situation. And I would say that for me, they've cut down on those types of mistakes. The types of mistakes that I'm seeing from them this split are more like, I call them concentration mistakes. You know, it's like Jojo dying solo, or like, you know, somebody sitting on a ward and you don't see him, or like, you know, just flipping something you don't need to flip, right? And in a sense, that's good that those are those mistakes that they're making, because they're easy to, you know, you just don't expect them to happen when playoffs are there and more things are on the line. But also, you know, it's always dangerous when you see these habits don't kind of snowball going into playoffs. So I agree. I think I wish, stay with G2. I just wish that a top team in the EU would just stamp their authority on the league, so that we can like we have something to hope for, right? And I guess KC are the closest people to do that. So for me, it's just kind of disappointment with MKOI. You know, it's like I saw them beat KC and G2 in such a convincing way. I was like, okay, these guys are going to stamp their authority, and they kind of they've just allowed themselves to drift once they playoffs has been. And that for me, that's what.
Who will join us on the next episode of the Best Damn League Show? Spoiler, I don't know. Find out on the next one.